The fog crept into Cedar Vale like a thief, swallowing the town in a damp, gray haze that muffled every sound. It was late October, the air heavy with pine and the faint smokiness of salmon bakes drifting from the Timber Days festival prep. I stood in my bathroom, the tub steaming, the mirror clouded, my reflection a blur. I'm Sarah Mitchell, 38, a nurse who's seen too many long shifts, and tonight, all I wanted was to sink into that water and let the world fade. But as I dipped my toes in, a question prickled at the back of my mind. Why did this house, my home, feel like it was watching me? Cedar Vale, Oregon, was a logging town, small and tight-knit, where folks gathered for barn dances and swapped stories over huckleberry pie. Yet tonight, the silence was too thick, like the fog had seeped inside. My craftsman house, with its creaky floors and rain-streaked windows, had been my sanctuary since I moved here after nursing school. Cedar Vale was the kind of place where you knew the diner specials by heart, clam chowder on Fridays, bottomless coffee always, and where the Timber Days festival brought log rolling contests, fiddle music, and bonfires that lit up the river. But lately, something felt off. My sister, Laura, had dropped off her son, Ethan, for a few days, saying she needed space to fix her marriage. Laura and I hadn't been close since Mom's death. Our calls were short, our hugs awkward. But Ethan, 9, with his shy smile and big eyes, was a light in my life. Still, there was something about him that made my skin prickle, like the way he'd whisper to himself or stare too long at nothing. I told myself it was just my exhaustion, the hospital's flu season wearing me down. The bath was my escape, the steam curling like a warm embrace, turning the bathroom into a cocoon. The house was quiet, save for the TV's low hum in the living room, where Laura was probably lost in her true crime obsession. Ethan was in his room, sketching or playing with the model trains I'd found in the attic. I sank deeper, the water easing my aching shoulders, and thought about Timber Days. The festival was a week away, and I'd promised Ethan we'd go, maybe try the ring toss, watch the salmon bake, where locals grilled fish over cedar planks, a nod to Tillamook tribal traditions. He nodded, but his eyes had been distant, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. I closed my eyes, letting the steam wrap me, but a sound snapped me back, a soft rustle, like leaves skittering across the floor. My heart stuttered, and I sat up, water sloshing. The bathroom door was locked, its oak solid, but the house was old, full of groans. "Laura?" I called, my voice sharper than I meant. No answer, just the TV's drone. "Ethan?" Silence. I strained to hear, the faucets drip loud in the quiet. Maybe it was the wind, or the rain tapping the windows. Cedar Vale was safe, folks left their bikes unchained, shared smoked salmon at potlucks, but as I settled back, there it was again, a faint step, deliberate, just outside. My pulse quickened, and I gripped the tub's edge, knuckles white. The steam felt heavier, pressing against me. I'd locked the door, I was sure, but now doubt crept in. Had I turned the bolt? I replayed the moment, click. But the footsteps came closer, slow, testing the floorboards. "Who's there?" I called, my voice trembling. No response, just the TV's hum. At the Timber Days planning meeting last week, old Mr. Harlan, a retired logger, had spun tales of the old mill by the river, saying it was cursed, that kids who wandered there came back, different. I'd laughed it off, but now, alone in the steam, his words felt too real. The doorknob rattled, a soft, insistent twist, and my stomach dropped. "Ethan, is that you?" I shouted, standing, water dripping, my towel across the room. The knob rattled again, harder, and then a whisper sliced through the steam, low and chilling. "Aunt Sarah." Ethan's voice, but not his, steady, too calm, like it belonged to someone older, someone wrong. My heart slammed against my ribs, and I wrapped the towel around me, hands shaking. "What do you want?" I called, but the whisper came again, closer. "I need you." The words weren't a child's plea, they were a demand, heavy with something dark. The steam swirled, the bathroom shrinking, and I knew, deep in my bones, that whatever was on the other side of that door wasn't just Ethan. As the knob turned again, I braced myself, ready to face the shadow in the steam. The fog hadn't budged by morning, blanketing Cedar Vale in a damp, gray veil that made the pines look like ghosts. I stood in the kitchen, coffee bitter on my tongue, replaying last night's whisper, "I need you." Ethan's voice, but not his, had followed me to bed, stealing sleep. I'd cracked the bathroom door after, heart pounding, but the hallway was empty, the house still. Laura had been on the couch, oblivious, saying Ethan was in his room. But that voice, that rattle at the door, wasn't a prank, it was something else, something watching. As I watched Ethan at the breakfast table, his spoon scraping cereal, I wondered, was I losing it, or was he not the boy I knew? Ethan was quiet, his dark hair over his eyes, but there was a stillness to him, like he was waiting. His sketchbook lay open, filled with jagged shapes, trees, maybe, or something darker. "Sleep okay, Ethan?" I asked, forcing cheer. He nodded, not looking up, his pencil scratching. Laura shuffled in, yawning, her hair a mess. "Morning," she mumbled, pouring coffee. "You two should hit the festival prep today. Get some air." Her casual tone stung. She hadn't seen the fear in my eyes last night, hadn't heard the whisper. "Let's go to the park," I said, needing to move, to test Ethan in daylight. The Timber Days stuff starting. The festival was Cedar Vale's pride, a celebration of logging history with salmon bakes, barn dances, and log rolling contests by the river. Ethan shrugged, but his eyes flicked to me, sharp, like he knew something I didn't. We walked through the fog, the town hushed, the river's murmur loud. Cedar Vale's logging past was everywhere, murals of lumberjacks, the old mill's ruins looming across the water. Ethan stopped, staring at the mill, its broken beams jagged in the mist. "What's that place?" he asked, his voice flat, too calm for a kid. I hesitated, Mr. Harlan's mill stories echoing. "Just an old mill," I said. "Closed years ago. They process timber there." I didn't mention the Tillamook legends, tales of spirits tied to the land, or the mill's darker history, a worker's death, whispers of a curse. But Ethan's gaze lingered, intense. "Can we go closer?" he asked, stepping toward the bridge. "No," I said, sharper than I meant, grabbing his arm. He pulled free, his strength surprising, and for a moment, his eyes weren't his, dark, bottomless. "Let's stick to the park," I said, heart racing, guiding him away. At the park, kids were setting up festival booths, laughing, but Ethan ignored them, sitting on a bench, sketching the mill. His pencil flew, too fast, and when I peeked, the drawing wasn't just the mill, it was a figure, shadowed, with eyes that chilled me. "Ethan, what's that?" I asked, my voice tight. He slammed the book shut, eyes cold. "Nothing," he said, but his tone was wrong, like he was hiding something. I looked away, pretending to watch the kids, but my mind spun. Last night's whisper, his stare, was I imagining it? Needing answers, I took him to the Pinewood Diner, a cozy spot with checkered floors and the smell of huckleberry pie. Laura met us, chatting about her job hunt, but Ethan's silence unnerved me. He stared at his fries, then at me, unblinking, like he was testing me. Mr. Harlan, the old logger, was at the next booth, his face weathered. "That boy's got the mill's shadow," he said, leaning over. "Heard he was out there. That place ain't right." He lowered his voice. "Amos Reed died there, crushed in the gears. Tillamook folks say his spirit's angry, looks for kids to carry his rage." Laura rolled her eyes, but I froze, remembering Ethan's sketch. "Just stories," I said, but Mr. Harlan's eyes held mine. "Watch him, Sarah. He's been too close to that mill." Back home, I couldn't stop. I searched online, finding articles about the mill's collapse in the 50s, Amos Reed's death, and eerie reports, kids acting strange, families fleeing. One story mentioned a Tillamook ritual to appease spirits, using cedar and salt. Ethan's sketchbook flashed in my mind, those eyes, and I knew I had to act. That evening, I found him in the backyard, staring into the fog. "Ethan," I said, cautious. What did you mean last night? When you said you needed me? He turned, his face blank, but his voice was low, almost a hiss. You'll understand soon, Aunt Sarah. I need you to see. His words hung, cold, and as he walked inside, I saw Mr. Harlan across the street, watching Ethan, his face grim. Whatever was in Ethan wasn't just a phase, and I had to find out what it wanted before it took him, or me. The fog clung to Cedar Vale, thick and unyielding, turning the town into a maze of shadows. I stood at my bedroom window, coffee cold in my hands, Ethan's words, "You'll understand soon," looping in my head. Last night, Mr. Harlan's warning about the mill and Ethan's eerie calm had kept me awake, my mind racing with Tillamook legends and those haunting sketches. The house was silent, Laura still asleep, but Ethan's door was ajar, his sketchbook open on the floor. As I peeked, my heart sank, pages of the mill, its gears drawn in obsessive detail, and a figure, tall, shadowed, with eyes that seemed to burn. I backed away, one thought screaming, Ethan wasn't just a kid anymore. Timber Days prep was everywhere, the town square buzzing with booths for salmon bakes, where cedar smoke curled into the air, and posters for a barn dance promising fiddle tunes and twirling. I'd hoped taking Ethan to the festival might ground him, but when I called him for breakfast, he was already at the table, sketching again. Ethan, I said, my voice tight, what's with the mill drawings? He looked up, eyes dark, unblinking. It's what I see, he said, his voice flat, like he was reciting a script. I wanted to shake him, to see the shy kid who loved model trains, but his stare stopped me cold. Let's go to the library, I said instead, needing answers. Maybe find some festival history. He nodded, but his eyes flicked to the window, toward the mill's silhouette across the river. The Cedar Vale Library was a brick haven, its shelves heavy with logging records and Tillamook lore. Ms. Ellis, the librarian, greeted us, her glasses glinting. Timber Days research, she asked, but her eyes lingered on Ethan, who wandered to the kids' section, sketching. I lowered my voice. I need info on the old mill. The one by the river. Ms. Ellis's smile faded. That place, she said, leading me to an archive. It's got a shadow. She pulled out clippings, articles about Amos Reed, crushed in the mill's gears in 1955, and Tillamook tales of a spirit, angry, seeking vessels. Kids have always been drawn there, she whispered. Some come back, changed. She handed me a journal, her hands trembling. I've been researching it since my niece acted odd after a mill visit. Be careful, Sarah. I read, heart pounding, about kids with nightmares, aggression, even vanishings after mill trips. A faded photo showed a boy, eyes hollow, eerily like Ethan's. Ms. Ellis joined me, her voice low. There's a Tillamook ritual, cedar, salt, fire, to cleanse a spirit. I'm trying it for my niece. You might need it. Ethan's pencil scratched nearby, too fast, and I glanced at him, fear rising. Was he already caught? That afternoon, I took Ethan to the mill's ruins, needing to face it. The fog was dense, the air thick with rot. The mill loomed, its beams like a skeleton, and Ethan darted forward, too eager. It's here, he said, touching a rusted gear. I grabbed him, but he twisted free, his strength unnatural. Let go, he hissed, his voice deep, and his eyes flickered, not human. I stumbled back, and the air shimmered, a vision of Amos Reed, bloodied, reaching for Ethan. I blinked, and it was gone, but Ethan smiled, like he'd seen it too. He knows you, he said, and I dragged him to the car, my hands shaking. Back home, Laura was packing for a job interview, brushing off my panic. He's fine, Sarah, she snapped. You're seeing things. But Ms. Ellis called, her voice urgent. I found more, a boy in 72, possessed, saved by the ritual. Meet me at the mill tonight. I agreed, but when I checked on Ethan, he was in the hallway, staring at my door. What are you doing? I asked, my voice sharp. Waiting, he said, his smile cold, and walked away. Mr. Harlan's truck pulled up outside, and he knocked, his face grim. "Saw your boy at the mill," he said. He wasn't right. "You need to act, Sarah, before it's too late." His words, Ms. Ellis's warning, Ethan's sketches, they were closing in, and I knew I had to face whatever was taking him. The fog pressed against Cedar Vale, heavy as grief, as I locked the bathroom door and sank into the tub. Timber days had started, the distant thump of fiddle music from the barn dance mixing with the scent of salmon bakes drifting through the town. Laura was at the festival, leaving me alone with Ethan, whose eerie sketches and cold stares had turned my home into a stranger's. I needed this bath, this fleeting peace, to plan my meeting with Ms. Ellis at the mill tonight. But as the steam rose, wrapping me in warmth, a truth chilled me: this house wasn't safe, and neither was I. The water soothed my aching muscles, but my nerves were frayed, every creak a threat. I'd read more about Amos Reed, the mill worker whose death birthed the curse, and Ms. Ellis's journal detailed kids possessed, families shattered. Ethan's strength at the mill, that vision of Amos, it was real, and Laura's denial only deepened my isolation. The festival's cheer, kids laughing, couples twirling at the barn dance, felt like another world. I closed my eyes, willing calm, but a rustle snapped me back, soft, like fabric brushing the floor. My heart lurched, and I sat up, water sloshing. "Laura?" I called, knowing she was gone. "Ethan?" No answer, just a deliberate step outside the door. The lock was secure, but the knob rattled, slow, then insistent. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice breaking. Silence, then a whisper, low and venomous. "Aunt Sarah." Ethan's voice, but twisted, deep, hypnotic, crawling into my skull. I gripped the tub, panic surging. "Ethan, what do you want?" I called, but the whisper came again, closer. "I need you." Not a plea, but a command, laced with menace. The steam thickened, suffocating, and I stood, grabbing my towel, hands trembling. The knob turned, the door creaking, and I screamed, "Stay back." But it opened, and Ethan stood there, his small frame blocking the light, his eyes black pits, his face twisted, not a child's, but something ancient, hungry. I backed against the wall, towel clutched tight. "Ethan, stop," I pleaded, my voice shaking. He stepped closer, his smile wrong, predatory. "You're mine," he said, his voice steady, and his hand shot out, grabbing my arm. His grip was iron, unnatural, pain shooting through me. "Let go." I yelled, but he leaned in, his breath cold against my neck, whispering, "I've waited too long." My mind screamed, "This isn't Ethan !" And I grabbed a shampoo bottle, hurling it at his chest. He flinched, loosening his grip, and I scrambled out, slipping on the tile. "Get away!" I shouted, but he lunged, faster than any child, his fingers digging into my arm. I swung the bottle again, hitting his shoulder, and he stumbled, his eyes flashing with something not human. I ran, slamming the door, racing to the living room. Laura burst through the front door, festival lights glowing behind her. "Sarah, what's wrong?" she cried, seeing my panic. I turned, but Ethan was gone, the bathroom empty, the bottle on the floor. "He attacked me," I stammered, but Laura's face hardened. "You're scaring me," she said. "Ethan's in his room." But I knew he wasn't. At the festival's barn dance later, I saw him by the bonfire, his face lit by flames, and it wasn't Ethan, just shadows, watching. Ms. Ellis was waiting at the mill, and I had to go, to save him, before the thing inside him claimed us both. Morning broke with the festival's hum, but my arm throbbed where Ethan had grabbed me, a bruise blooming under my sleeve. The house felt alive, its shadows shifting, and I moved through it like a hunted thing, checking locks, avoiding Ethan's door. Laura was in the kitchen, flipping pancakes, acting like last night was a bad dream, but her eyes were strained. "He's just a kid, Sarah," she'd said, dismissing my story. But I'd felt his grip, seen his eyes, black, not human. As I sipped coffee, one truth burned: I'd saved Ethan once, but the darkness wasn't gone. Timber Days was in full swing, Cedar Vale alive with log rolling contests, bluegrass bands, and the smoky tang of salmon bakes. I took Ethan to the festival, hoping crowds might anchor him, but his behavior swung, laughing at a juggler one moment, then staring at the mill across the river, his eyes cold. Laura joined us, chatting with neighbors, blind to his shifts. At the salmon bake, where Tillamook elders shared stories of spirits tied to the land, I caught Ms. Ellis by a pie stall. "You saw Amos at the mill," she whispered, her journal tucked under her arm. "The curse takes kids. I'm trying the ritual for my niece, cedar, salt, fire. Meet me tonight." I nodded, fear twisting my gut. Mr. Harlan approached, his face grim. "Saw your boy by the river," he said. He spoke to me, but it wasn't him. I tried to grab him, but he was too strong. "You gotta end this, Sarah." His words, Ms. Ellis's urgency, pushed me to act. I spent the day with Ms. Ellis's journal, learning the Tillamook ritual, circle of salt, cedar smoke, words to banish a spirit. It was risky, but Ethan was slipping away. That night, as the festival's bonfire roared, Ethan vanished into the crowd. I found him at the mill's ruins, his eyes black, his voice not his. "You can't stop it," he said, and the air shimmered. Amos Reed's figure, bloodied, loomed behind him. Ms. Ellis arrived, her bag heavy with cedar and salt. "Now, Sarah," she urged. I poured the salt circle, lit the cedar, its smoke sharp, and chanted the words, my voice shaking. Ethan screamed, collapsing, and the shadow dissolved, the air clearing. Back home, Ethan hugged Laura, seeming normal, but his glance at me was too knowing, too dark. Laura called me paranoid, but Mr. Harlan, at the festival's barn dance, pulled me aside. "He's better, but it ain't over," he said. "That mill's still there." Cedar Vale moved on, the festival fading, but I locked my doors, the ritual's words echoing. I'd saved Ethan, for now, but his eyes held a shadow, and I knew the mill's curse was waiting, patient, for another chance.